The old key. A room of secrets. There's an old brass key that rests in the bottom of my father's desk drawer, dull, cold to the touch, with tiny teeth worn smooth by years of fingers turning it over and wondering where it fits. When I was a boy, I'd sometimes sneak it out while my father wasn't looking. I'd hold it up to the lamp, squinting at its shape, imagining it opened something grand, a treasure chest, a hidden drawer in the attic, maybe even a secret passage behind the old bookshelf in the hallway. But whenever I asked, my father would just smile that quiet smile of his, tap the end of my nose with a calloused finger, and say, "Some doors don't open until you're ready, boy." I never really knew what he meant. The house didn't have any locked doors. The attic was dusty but bare, the cellar too damp for secrets, the shed out back filled only with rusty tools and old nails. And so the key stayed in its drawer, waiting, like a word left unsaid, like a story half told. Years slipped by the way they do, one school year into another, the slow climb from boyhood to manhood marked by the deepening lines on my father's hands and the soft silver creeping into his hair. The key stayed put, cold and silent, a relic I stopped noticing as bills, papers, and life piled on top of it. It wasn't until my father grew too tired to sit at his desk that the key resurfaced. I found it one evening while sorting his drawers, receipts, old letters tied in twine, a single marble from my childhood rolling loose among yellowed paper. And there it was, the brass key, waiting for my fingers once more. I almost put it back. But something in me, the same small boy who once pressed an ear to the hallway wall, hoping to hear the click of a hidden door, tugged at my sleeve. So I slipped it into my pocket and waited for the right moment to ask. A few nights later, I sat beside his bed, reading aloud from the newspaper while his breath came and went in quiet, measured drafts. When I set the paper down, I felt the key heavy in my pocket, like an old promise. "Dad," I said softly. "What does it open?" His eyes fluttered open, the same kind eyes that once winked at me over the breakfast table before slipping the key back in its drawer. He looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing whether I was still too small for secrets. Finally, he chuckled, a dry, brittle sound that still held warmth. "There's a room upstairs," he whispered. "Behind the linen closet. Push the back panel. It's nothing special, son. Just pieces of who we were." When he drifted back to sleep, I sat for a while, the key warm in my palm now. I felt foolish for the way my heart pounded. A secret room, in our house, where every creaking board and crooked window had been mine to explore. That night, I crept up the stairs like I had so many nights as a boy, careful not to wake the house, careful not to wake old memories that might not want to be disturbed. Behind the linen closet door, I pressed gently on the back panel. It gave way with a soft groan. Beyond it was a small door I had never noticed, its brass lock dull but intact. My hands shook as I slid the key in, it fit so naturally, I wondered if my father's hands had shaped it that way through years of turning it over. Inside was nothing like the treasure troves I'd dreamed of. Just a narrow room lined with old boxes, a single chair, and a stack of notebooks tied together with string. A dusty blanket lay folded in the corner. On the walls, old family photos, not the ones we kept in albums for guests, but the quiet ones, my father as a boy, barefoot in the garden, my mother, young and laughing at something just outside the frame, my grandparents, sitting close on a porch I'd never seen. I sank onto the chair, the key still warm in my hand. I flipped open one of the notebooks, my father's handwriting, looping and uneven, filled with half-finished stories, small sketches, shopping lists pressed in the margins of dreams. Here were his thoughts, the ones he'd never spoken, small fears, bigger hopes, apologies he'd written but never said aloud. I sat there until the house creaked with dawn, feeling the walls close in with their secrets. The room wasn't magic. It wasn't grand. But it was real, a hidden corner where my father kept pieces of himself he wasn't ready to share until he couldn't hold them alone anymore. Sometimes now, I open that little door and sit a while. I read a page or two. I run my fingers over old photographs, the edges curled like the pages of a well-loved book. The key lives in my pocket more often than not. It doesn't lock anything away anymore, it just reminds me that all of us have rooms inside us, filled with words and moments we keep behind quiet doors, waiting for someone we trust enough to find the key.